Clara Voss disappeared in the Bitterroot Forest in Montana, trapped in this abandoned fire tower. Her kidnapper thought he was untouchable, but he left clues behind. 6 chilling clues tell the story of her survival. The police have found clues. Will they be able to rescue her in time? Review this evidence and write in the comments where the kidnapper went wrong. Clues found, but will they lead to Clara? I still hear the wind howling through the pines, sharp and cold, like a warning I didn't heed. My name is Clara Voss, and I was just a freelance photographer chasing the perfect shot in Montana's Bitterroot National Forest. The abandoned fire tower, perched on a rocky ridge, promised a view of the valley that could heal the ache of my sister's death 6 months prior. I've been running from grief, hiding in my camera lens, capturing beauty to drown out the pain. That day, the forest silence felt like a gift, until it turned into a cage. I'd hiked 3 miles from the trailhead, my boots crunching on frost-kissed needles, the air stinging my cheeks. The tower loomed ahead, a skeletal relic of rusted metal and peeling paint, its windows dark like empty eyes. I was alone, or so I thought. My pack held a water bottle, the granola bar, and my Nikon. Simple tools for a simple escape. I didn't notice the footprints in the mud, faint and fresh, trailing mine. The attack came fast. I was framing a shot of the tower against the bruised sky when a hand clamped over my mouth, sour with sweat. My scream died against calloused skin. I thrashed, my boots scraping gravel, but the world spun as something heavy, a rock, maybe struck my temple. Stop fighting. A voice rasped, low and unsteady, like he was convincing himself. My knees buckled, and darkness swallowed me. I woke to the smell of damp wood and rust, my wrists burning from coarse rope. My head throbbed, and my mouth tasted of blood. I was inside the fire tower, sprawled on a splintered floor. The air was thick, heavy with mildew, and something metallic like old tools left to rot. A single bulb flickered above, casting jagged shadows. My pack was gone, my camera too. Panic clawed my chest, but I forced myself to breathe, to listen. Outside, the wind moaned, and somewhere below, boots scuffed against metal stairs. He appeared in the doorway, a man, maybe 40, wiry with a gaunt face and eyes that darted like a trapped animal's. His flannel shirt was stained, his hands clutching a thermos like it was a lifeline. "You're awake," he said, his voice soft but sharp, like a blade wrapped in cotton. He didn't look at me, just stared at the floor, muttering, "You shouldn't have come here." My mind raced. Why me? What did he want? I tried to speak, but my throat was dry, and the words stuck. I tested the ropes, my wrists raw, but the knots tight. The tower's walls were weathered, gaps letting in slivers of cold air. I heard no cars, no voices, just the forest's endless whisper. I thought of my sister, Lila, how she'd have fought, how she'd have told me to stay sharp. I was a planner, always mapping out shots, calculating light. Now, I needed to plan survival. He left me alone, descending the creaking stairs. I strained to hear. His boots faded, then returned, pacing below. I scanned the room, a rusted cot, a cracked window, a pile of old maps in the corner. Then I saw it, scratched into the wooden wall by my feet. Help 2019. My breath caught. I wasn't the first. My heart pounded as I traced the letters with trembling fingers, the wood rough under my nails. Who had been here? Were they still alive? I imagined Lila out there, calling the rangers, refusing to give up. She'd been the brave one, the one who dragged me on adventures. Now, I was alone, and the forest didn't care. The man's muttering drifted up again, something about debts and promises. I didn't know what he meant, but his voice sent ice down my spine. The bulb flickered again, and I froze. Footsteps climbed the stairs, slow and deliberate. My pulse thundered. Was he coming back to hurt me? Or worse, to explain why I was here? I pressed myself against the wall, the scratched message digging into my back, and waited. Who else had been trapped here? And what did he want with me? The fire tower was a prison of rust and shadows, its walls creaking like it was alive and mocking me. My name is Clara Voss, and I've been trapped here for 3 days. Or was it 4? Time blurred in the dim light of that single, flickering bulb. The air smelled of mildew and pine, so thick it coated my throat. My wrists, still bound, ached under the coarse rope, and my stomach gnawed itself empty. He left me a tin cup of water and a stale crust of bread once a day, sliding it across the floor like I was a dog. I sipped slowly, savoring every drop, counting seconds to keep my mind sharp. 1, 2, 3. I'd hit 10,000 before I let myself cry. The tower's top room was small, maybe 10 feet square, with a splintered wooden floor and a cracked window letting in drafts that bit my skin. Outside, the Bitterroot National Forest stretched endlessly, pines swaying under a gray sky. No roads, no voices, just the wind's relentless howl. I'd always loved the wilderness, its quiet beauty, but now it felt like a traitor hiding me from the world. I pictured Lila, my sister, organizing search parties, her voice cracking as she begged rangers to check the trails. She'd know I'd never just vanish. But would they find this tower, forgotten on a ridge no one patrolled? I studied my captor when he appeared, trying to piece together who he was and why I was here. He was lean, almost frail, with sunken cheeks and hair matted like he hadn't bathed in weeks. His name, I learned, was Amos, overheard when he muttered to himself, pacing below. He never looked me in the eye, but his hands shook when he spoke, clutching that same thermos, its dented surface catching the light. "You don't understand," he'd say, voice low, like he was arguing with someone invisible. "It's not personal. Not personal." He'd stolen my life, dragged me into this rotting cage. My anger flared, but I swallowed it. Anger wouldn't loosen ropes. I memorized his routines. He'd climb the stairs at dawn, leave the bread and water, then disappear for hours. Sometimes I heard a truck engine, faint and rumbling, fading into the forest. Where was he going? I tested the ropes when he was gone, twisting my wrists until they bled, but the knots held. I scanned the room for anything useful, a nail, a shard of glass, but found only dust and those scratched words, "Help 2019. I traced them again, wondering about the person who'd carved them. Had they escaped? Died? The thought made my chest tight, but I pushed it down. Focus, Clara. You're still alive. One afternoon, I heard him below, talking, not muttering, but a real conversation. I pressed my ear to the floor, heart pounding. "They're looking too close," he said, his voice sharp. "We need to move her soon." Her. Me. My blood ran cold. Who was he talking to? I strained to hear more, but the other voice was too low, muffled by the wind. I caught one word, debts, and my mind spun. Was this about money? Revenge? I remembered his eyes, wild but sad, like a man running out of time. He'd mentioned debts before, that first night, muttering as he paced. Did I owe him something I didn't know about? I started hiding things, a pebble from the floor, a bent nail I pried from the cot with my teeth. Small victories, proof I wasn't helpless. I scratched marks into the wall to track the days. Next to that haunting Help 2019. My fingers trembled, but it felt like defiance. I whispered to myself, to Lila, promising I'd get out, that I'd see her again. Her face, laughing, freckled, alive, kept me from breaking. But despair crept in at night when the tower groaned and the bulb flickered, casting shadows that looked like hands reaching for me. On the 4th day, I noticed something new, a loose floorboard near the window. It creaked when I shifted my weight, a faint give under my heel. My heart leapt. Could I pry it up? Hide something? Escape? I glanced at the stairs, listening for his boots. Silence. I inched toward the board, my bound hands clumsy, and nudged it. The wood lifted slightly, revealing a dark gap below. My pulse raced. What was down there? A tool? A way out? I leaned closer, the mildew smell stronger, when I heard it, the sharp creak of the stairs. He was coming. I scrambled back, heart hammering, as his shadow filled the doorway. His eyes flicked to the floor, then to me, narrowing. "What are you doing?" he asked, voice low and dangerous. I forced my face blank, but my mind screamed. Had he seen me? Could I pry that board open before he moved me? The fire tower's walls seemed to tighten around me, each creak a reminder of my cage. I'm Clara Voss, and I've been trapped here for 6 days, my wrists raw from ropes, my body weak from hunger. The Bitterroot National Forest stretched beyond the cracked window, its pines swaying under a leaden sky, mocking me with their freedom. The air smelled of damp wood and rust, and the flickering bulb above cast shadows that danced like ghosts. I clung to the thought of my sister, Lila, out there, refusing to give up. She'd be tearing through ranger stations, demanding they search every ridge. But would they find this forgotten tower, hidden in the wilderness? I'd started noticing things about Amos, my captor, piecing together clues like fragments of a broken lens. His boots were caked with red clay, not the gray soil around the tower. It was a faint detail, but it nagged at me. Where was he going when he left? I'd heard that truck engine again, rumbling at dusk, fading into the distance. Was there a road nearby? A town? I scratched another mark into the wall, next to Help 2019, my fingers trembling but steady enough to keep count. 7 marks now. 7 days stolen. I fought to stay sharp, memorizing sounds. The wind's howl, the stairs groan, Amos's muttering. He'd been quieter lately, his eyes darting, his thermos clutched tighter. Yesterday, I'd overheard him below, voice sharp, "They're getting closer. We can't wait." Who was they? Searchers? Police? My heart surged with hope, but fear followed fast. If they were close, why hadn't I heard helicopters or voices? I imagined Lila with a map, pointing to the trails I'd hiked, her voice breaking as she begged for answers. Later, I'd learned the rangers had searched the wrong valley, misled by a false tip about my car. The thought made my chest ache. I was invisible out here. I kept testing the loose floorboard when Amos was gone, my bound hands clumsy but determined. It lifted an inch, revealing a dark gap smelling of earth and decay. I couldn't see much, but I felt a draft, cool and sharp. Was it a crawl space? A way out? I hid my efforts, shoving the board back when I heard his truck return. I also kept my pebble and nail tucked under the cot's thin mattress, small anchors of control. Each act of defiance, scratching marks, hiding objects, felt like a thread tying me to survival. Amos's behavior was shifting. He brought me water twice yesterday, his hands shaking as he set the cup down. "You don't know what this is," he said, eyes on the floor. "You don't know what they took from me." His words chilled me. Who were they? Was this about me, or something bigger? I remember a photo he'd pulled from his pocket once, worn and creased, a woman's face barely visible. Was she the key? A wife? A sister? My mind spun theories. Revenge, grief, desperation, but nothing fit. His sadness made him human, but his coldness made him dangerous. I started whispering to myself, to Lila, to stay sane. "They're looking for me," I'd say, imagining her with a park ranger, maybe a woman with tired eyes and a personal stake, someone who'd lost someone too. I pictured them combing the forest, finding my dropped water bottle near the trailhead. But hope was a fragile thing. At night, when the tower groaned and the bulb flickered, despair crept in. What if they never came? What if Amos moved me first? On the 7th day, I found something new. While shifting to ease the pain in my legs, I felt a cold, hard object under my thigh. A rusted pocket knife, half buried in a crack in the floor. My breath caught. Had it been there all along, left by the one who scratched Help 2019? I glanced at the stairs, heart pounding. No footsteps. I nudged the knife closer with my foot, my bound hand straining to reach it. The blade was dull, but it could cut rope. Freedom felt so close, yet so far. Amos could return any moment. I hid the knife under my leg, my pulse racing. Could I use it before he noticed? Then I heard it, a distant thump like a car door. Not Amos's truck. It was different, sharper. Voices followed, faint and muffled by the wind. Searchers? I froze, listening, my heart a drum in my chest. I wanted to scream, but fear stopped me. What if it was Amos's accomplice? The voices faded, and silence returned, heavy and cruel. I clutched the knife tighter, its metal cold against my skin. Was that my chance, or was Amos's accomplice closer than I thought? The fire tower was a tomb of rust and whispers, its walls closing in as the days bled together. I'm Clara Voss, and I've been trapped here for 9 days, my wrists scarred from ropes, my body a map of bruises. The Bitterroot National Forest loomed outside, its pines clawing at a stormy sky, their creaks mocking my captivity. The air smelled of damp wood and fear, the flickering bulb above casting shadows that seemed to watch me. I clung to thoughts of my sister, Lila, her fierce voice pushing me to keep fighting. But hope was a thin thread, and I was fraying. I'd hidden the rusted pocket knife under my thigh, its dull blade my only weapon. Each night, when Amos's truck rumbled away, I worked at the ropes, the knife's edge catching just enough to fray the fibers. My hand shook, slick with sweat and blood, but I was close, maybe one more night. The loose floorboard still tempted me, its dark gap whispering of escape, but I hadn't dared pry it further. Amos's footsteps were too unpredictable, his eyes too sharp. He'd been different lately, frantic, his thermos now replaced by a flask that reeked of whiskey. It's almost time, he'd muttered yesterday, pacing below. Time for what? My stomach twisted. A new clue had emerged 2 days ago when he dropped a crumpled paper while shoving bread at me. It fell near the cot, and I'd hidden it under my leg before he noticed. When he left, I unfolded it with trembling fingers, a map, hand-drawn, showing the tower and a winding path to a place marked Creek Bend. Red clay streaked the paper's edge, matching his boots. My mind raced. Where's Creek Bend? A hideout? A grave? The map's edges were worn, like he'd studied it for years. I hid it under the mattress with my pebble and nail, my heart pounding. This was something, proof, maybe of where he went or why I was here. I analyzed every detail of Amos. His muttering had grown desperate, words spilling out like confessions. She didn't listen, he'd said last night, clutching that worn photo I'd glimpsed before, a woman young with sad eyes. You're like her, Clara. My name in his mouth felt like a violation. Did he know me? Had I met him before? I scoured my memories, clients, hikers, anyone from my past, but nothing fit. His grief was real, but so was his rage, and I was caught in its crosshairs. I acted that morning, when his truck roared away at dawn. I sought at the ropes with a knife, my wrists screaming, until one strand snapped. My left hand was free. I gasped, adrenaline flooding me, and worked faster, freeing my other hand. The ropes fell, and I stood, legs wobbly but alive. I crept to the floorboard, prying it with a knife. It lifted, revealing a narrow crawl space, cold air rushing up. My heart leapt. Could it lead outside? I peered into the dark, seeing only shadows, when I heard a new sound. Voices, not Amos's, low and urgent, from the forest below. Searchers? I froze, torn between shouting and hiding. What if it was his accomplice? I scrambled to the window, its cracked glass fogged with my breath. Through the pines, I saw flashes of movement, 2 figures, one in a ranger's vest. My chest tightened with hope. I grabbed the pebble, scratched alive on the wall next to Help 2019, and tossed it through a gap in the window, praying it'd land where they'd see it. But as I turned, I heard the truck's engine, closer now. Amos was back. Panic seized me. I shoved the floorboard down, hid the knife, and retied the ropes loosely around my wrists, praying he wouldn't notice. He burst in, eyes wild, flask in hand. You hear that? He snapped, head cocked toward the window. They're too close. His voice cracked, and he grabbed a duffel bag, stuffing it with maps and clothes. My heart sank. He was planning to move me. I glanced at the floorboard, the map's location, Creek Bend, burning in my mind. Then I heard it, a second voice not outside but below in the tower's base. "Hurry up, Amos," it growled, male, unfamiliar. My blood ran cold. There was someone else here. Who was with Amos, and what did they want with me? The fire tower was a cage of splintered wood and dread, its walls groaning under the weight of a gathering storm. I'm Clara Voss, and I've been trapped here for 10 days, my body aching, my mind a tightrope between hope and panic. The Bitterroot National Forest howled outside, rain lashing the cracked window, the pines bending like mourners. The air inside was heavy with mildew and fear, the flickering bulb above barely holding back the dark. I freed my wrist with the rusted pocket knife, but I kept the ropes loosely draped, a fragile disguise. The map to Creek Bend and the scratched alive on the wall were my secrets, tucked away with a pebble and nail under the cot's thin mattress. But now, Amos wasn't alone, and that changed everything. The second voice below, gruff and impatient, sent ice through my veins. "Move it, Amos. They're too damn close," it barked, echoing up the tower's rusted stairs. My heart pounded. Who was he? An accomplice? A partner in whatever twisted plan Amos had? I pictured Lila, my sister, out there, pushing rangers to search harder, her voice breaking as she clutched my photo. I'd heard voices yesterday, searchers, maybe, and thrown that pebble with alive scratched into it, hoping they'd find it. But now, with Amos and this stranger packing to move me, time was slipping away. Amos was frantic, his boots thudding as he stuffed maps and clothes into a duffel bag. His flask lay abandoned, whiskey pooling on the floor, its sharp scent cutting through the mildew. "She's not ready," he muttered, eyes darting to me, then away. "Not yet." Ready for what? My stomach churned. The photo of the woman, his obsession, maybe his sister or wife, flashed in my mind. Was I a stand-in for her? A pawn in his grief? I gripped the hidden knife under my thigh, its dull blade my only hope. I had to act. The loose floorboard, with its dark crawl space, was my best chance. When Amos turned to grab a flashlight, I slid to the floor, my hands shaking as I pried the board up. The gap widened, revealing a narrow shaft, cold air rushing up like a promise. It smelled of earth and decay, but it was a way out, or a trap. I hesitated, heart hammering, then heard the stranger's boots on the stairs. "We're out of time," he shouted. I shoved the board back, scrambling to my spot, ropes draped loosely over my wrists. The stranger appeared, a burly man, bearded, in a stained jacket, eyes cold as the storm outside. He wasn't like Amos. There was no sadness in him, just calculation. "This her?" he asked, jerking his chin at me. Amos nodded, avoiding my gaze. "She'll do," the man said, and my blood ran cold. Do for what? A ransom? Something worse? I clutched the knife tighter, my pulse a drum in my ears. The stranger's gaze lingered, then he turned to Amos. "Truck's ready. Let's go." I saw my chance when Amos bent to grab the duffel. I lunged, ripping the ropes free, and slashed the knife at his leg. It caught his thigh, shallow but enough to make him scream. "Clara!" he roared, stumbling. I bolted for the stairs, the stranger cursing behind me. The tower shook as I descended, my bare feet slipping on rusted metal, rain-soaked wind tearing through the gaps. I hit the ground floor, a cramped room with a locked door. I slammed my shoulder against it, but it wouldn't budge. Footsteps thundered above, both of them now. Outside, lightning cracked, illuminating the forest. Through a slit in the door, I saw headlights, Amos's truck idling. Then another light, faint but steady, moving through the trees. Flashlights. My heart leapt. "Rangers?" I screamed, my voice raw help. "I'm here." The stranger's boots hit the ground floor, his shadow looming. I dove behind a stack of crates, clutching the knife. He yanked the door open, rain pouring in, and shouted to Amos, "She's gone." But I wasn't gone. I was cornered. The flashlights grew brighter, voices cutting through the storm. "Clara Voss. Call out." A woman's voice, sharp with urgency. I screamed again here. "Fire tower." The stranger froze, then bolted outside, Amos limping after him. I stumbled to the door, my legs shaking, and saw figures in ranger vests, guns drawn, closing in. "Drop your weapons," one shouted. Amos raised his hands, but the stranger ran, vanishing into the trees. A ranger, a woman with tired eyes, reached me, her hand steady on my arm. "You're safe, Clara," she said, but her voice trembled like she'd been searching too long. I collapsed, the knife clattering to the ground, rain mixing with tears on my face. I was free, but the stranger's escape gnawed at me. Amos was cuffed, muttering about debts and betrayal. But the other man, who was he? I looked back at the tower, its silhouette stark against the lightning. Creek Bend. That name still burned in my mind. Who was the stranger, and was it really over? The fire tower is a scar in my memory, its rusted silhouette burned into every quiet moment. I'm Clara Voss, and it's been 6 months since I stumbled out of that prison in Montana's Bitterroot National Forest, rain-soaked and trembling, into the arms of Ranger Sarah Klein. The forest, once my sanctuary for capturing light through my camera lens, now feels like a stranger, its pines whispering secrets I can't unhear. The smell of damp wood, the creak of metal stairs, the weight of ropes on my wrists, they linger, sharp as ever. I'm safe now in a small Missoula apartment, but safety is a fragile thing, like a photograph fading at the edges. I survived, but the shadows of that ordeal still stretch long. The resolution came in fragments, pieced together like a shattered negative. Amos, my captor, was arrested that stormy night, his hands cuffed as he muttered about debts and a woman named Ellie. The Rangers found his journal in the tower's base, its pages a chaotic map of his broken mind. Ellie was his sister, killed 5 years ago in a hit-and-run. Amos had fixated on me, believing I knew the driver, a man I'd photographed once, a client from a corporate shoot whose name I barely recalled. His grief had twisted into vengeance, and I was his target, dragged to that tower to confess a crime I didn't commit. The map to Creek Bend marked his family's old cabin, where he'd planned to take me, to force answers I couldn't give. His cousin Ray, the stranger who'd helped him, vanished into the forest that night, leaving only footprints that led to a river and stopped cold. I sat in the hospital the next day, Lila's arms around me, her tears soaking my shoulder. "I knew you were alive," she whispered, her voice raw. She was 32, my older sister by 3 years, always the fierce one, the one who'd drag me on hikes and laugh at my caution. She'd spent 10 days hounding the Rangers, pinning maps to walls, refusing to let them give up. They'd searched the wrong valley for days, misled by a false tip about my car, but Lila's insistence, and a hiker finding my pebbles scratched with alive, had led them to the tower. Ranger Sarah Klein, 38, was the one who'd grabbed me, her eyes heavy with her own ghosts. Her brother had vanished in these woods a decade ago, never found, and I saw that pain in her grip, steady but trembling. She showed me the pebble later, its rough surface a lifeline I'd thrown blindly. The aftermath is a maze of healing and questions. My wrists still bear faint scars, thin white lines where the ropes cut deep. Nightmares wake me. Amos's voice, low and sad, saying, "You're like her." I haven't touched my Nikon since. Its lens feels like a trap, luring me back to that ridge. Therapy helps, but trust is a casualty. Every stranger's glance feels like a threat. Every creak in my apartment, a footstep. I walk to a coffee shop each morning, forcing myself to face the world, my boots scuffing the same sidewalks Lila and I walked as kids. I'm 29, but I feel older, my youth stolen in that tower. Yet I'm stronger too, forged in those moments of defiance, prying that floorboard, hiding that knife, scratching alive into stone. The investigation peeled back Amos's life like bark from a rotting tree. He was 42, a loner crippled by debt and grief, living in a trailer on the forest's edge. His journal revealed years of obsession, tracking the hit-and-run driver through news clippings and half-remembered faces. My photo shoot, a random gig for a tech firm, had caught his eye, a blurry image of a man he swore was guilty. He'd followed me for weeks, my hikes, my routines, waiting for the moment I'd be alone. The Help 2019 scratched in the tower's wall was a mystery. Police found no record of another captive, but the carving was real, its edges raw. I lie awake sometimes, wondering who left it, if they're still out there, their story buried in the forest. Ray, the stranger, is the loose thread that keeps me up at night. He was 47, a drifter with a rap sheet. Petty theft, bar fights, hired by Amos for muscle. The Rangers tracked his prints to a river, where they found a discarded jacket, soaked and torn, but no body. Sarah called me last week, her voice clipped. "We're still looking," she said, but I heard the doubt. Ray could be anywhere, another state, another forest, watching from the shadows. I check my locks twice, keep a knife by my bed, its blade sharper than the one I found in the tower. I tell myself he's gone, but the fear lingers, a cold weight in my chest. Justice is a partial thing. Amos pleaded guilty, sparing me a trial, but his sentencing is months away. His journal gave the prosecution everything: motive, planning, even sketches of the tower. They found the Creek Bend cabin, empty but stained with red clay, its walls lined with old photos of Ellie, smiling alive. I visited it once, with Sarah, needing to see where I might have ended up. The cabin was small, its windows boarded, the air thick with dust. I stood there, shaking, imagining Amos's voice, his flask glinting. I left quickly, the forest pressing too close. Lila and I are rebuilding, slowly. We cook dinner together most nights, her laughter a balm for my nerves. She's pushed me to talk, to cry, to let the memories out instead of bottling them. "You're still you," she says, but I'm not sure who that is anymore. I was the dreamer, the one chasing light through a lens, but now I'm the survivor, carrying a story heavier than I expected. I've started writing it down, these words a way to reclaim what happened, to make sense of the chaos. I think of Sarah, still searching for Ray, for her brother, for answers the forest won't give. Her determination mirrors mine, a quiet resolve to keep going. I went back to the tower last month, against Lila's protests. I needed to face it, to see it in daylight, not as a prison, but as a place I'd outsmarted. The Rangers had sealed it, yellow tape flapping in the wind, but it looked smaller, less monstrous. The pines stood silent, their needles carpeting the ground where my water bottle had lain. I found a spot where I'd thrown the pebble, its message a spark that brought me home. I stood there, breathing the cold air, and whispered to whoever left, "Help 2019," promising I'd keep their memory alive. I don't know if they escaped or died, but I owe them my strength, my refusal to break. I'm different now, sharper, warier. I walk with purpose, my eyes scanning for threats, but also for beauty, a habit I can't shake. The mountains beyond Missoula are still there, their peaks catching the dawn, and sometimes I feel the urge to hike again, to reclaim the wild. But not yet. I'm learning to live with the scars, to let them remind me I'm here, alive because I fought. I think of Amos, locked away, his grief a prison of his own making. I think of Ray, a shadow I may never see. And I think of the others, the ones who might still be out there, their own towers hidden in the dark. I stand on my balcony some nights, the city lights soft below, the forest a distant smudge. I'm stronger than I was, but the question lingers, a whisper in the wind. How many others are still waiting, scratching their own cries for help? I don't have answers, but I have my voice, my story, and I'll keep telling it, for them, for me, for the light that still burns through the shadows that I stand on my balcony some nights, the city lights soft below, the forest a distant smudge. I'm stronger than I was, but the question lingers, a whisper in the wind. How many others are still waiting, scratching their own cries for help? I don't have answers, but I have my voice, my story, and I'll keep telling it for them, for me, for the light that still burns through the shadows. How many others are out there? Their stories buried in the wilderness. The Bitterroot National Forest is a ghost that lingers in my bones, its pines whispering secrets I'll never fully unravel. I'm Clara Voss, and it's been a year since I escaped the fire tower, a year since I stumbled into the rain-soaked arms of Ranger Sarah Klein, my wrists raw from ropes, my heart pounding with a miracle of survival. I'm 30 now, living in a small apartment in Missoula, Montana, where the mountains loom on the horizon like silent sentinels. The air here is crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine and earth, but it's not the same forest, not the one that swallowed me whole. That place, with its rusted tower and creaking stairs, is a wound that scabbed over but never quite healed. I'm safe, but safety is a fragile thing, like a photograph left too long in the sun, its edges curling, its colors fading. The tower is gone now, torn down by the Forest Service last spring. I read about it in a local paper, a brief article buried on page 5, abandoned fire tower demolished after kidnapping case. The words felt clinical, detached, as if a few sentences could erase what happened. They didn't mention the Help 2019 scratched into the wall, or the way the bulb flickered, casting shadows that looked like hands reaching for me. They didn't mention Amos, 42, whose grief turned him into a monster, or Ray, 47, his cousin who vanished into the forest like smoke. And they didn't mention me, the woman who survived, who's still piecing herself back together. I've learned to live with the scars, physical and otherwise. The thin white lines on my wrists are barely visible now, hidden under long sleeves, but I feel them when I grip a coffee mug or brush my hair. My Nikon sits untouched in a closet, its lens a portal to a life I can't reclaim. I was a photographer once, chasing light through the wilderness, but the forest betrayed me, and I haven't found the courage to look through a viewfinder again. Instead, I write. Words have become my new lens, a way to frame the chaos, to make sense of the 10 days I spent in that tower, bound and terrified, counting seconds to stay sane. Amos's trial ended 3 months ago. He pleaded guilty to kidnapping and assault, sparing me the ordeal of testifying. I sat in the courtroom anyway, in the back row, my sister Lila beside me, her hands squeezing mine so tight it hurt. Amos looked smaller in the orange jumpsuit, his gaunt face hollowed further by months in a cell. He was sentenced to 15 years, a number that felt both too long and too short. His journal, found in the tower, was the prosecution's cornerstone, pages filled with rants about his sister Ellie, killed in a hit-and-run 5 years prior, and his obsession with a man he thought I knew. That man, a tech executive I'd photographed once, was long gone, moved to another state, oblivious to the storm he'd sparked in Amos's mind. I watched Amos as the judge spoke, searching for remorse, but his eyes were distant, fixed on some memory I couldn't see. When they let him away, he didn't look at me, and I was glad. His gaze had already taken too much. Lila, 32, has been my anchor. She's the one who pushed me to eat, to sleep, to talk when the nightmares came. We're closer now, our bond forged in the fire of those 10 days when she refused to let the Rangers give up. She'd spent hours at the station, pinning maps to walls, her voice hoarse from arguing with anyone who'd listen. "Clara's out there," she'd said over and over, until a hiker found my pebble, scratched with alive, and pointed Sarah Klein to the tower. Lila's apartment is a mile from mine, and we meet for dinner most nights, cooking pasta or stir-fry, laughing at old stories. But sometimes I catch her watching me, her brown eyes searching for cracks, worried I'll break again. I don't tell her about the nights I wake up gasping, the tower's mildew smell in my nose, or the way I check my locks 3 times before bed. Sarah Klein, 38, is another piece of this fractured story. She calls me sometimes, her voice steady but heavy, like she's carrying her own ghosts. Her brother, lost in these woods a decade ago, drives her to keep searching, not just for Ray, but for answers to cases the forest has buried. She told me about the tower's history after the trial, how it was abandoned in the 80s, left to rot until Amos found it. The Help 2019 carving haunted her too. They'd combed records, interviewed locals, but found no trace of another victim. It's real, Sarah said, her voice low. Someone was there. I think of that unknown soul often, wondering if they escaped, if they're alive, or if their bones are hidden in the pines. I've started a notebook, jotting down ideas to investigate, to honor them. It's not much, but it's something, a way to give voice to the silenced. Ray is the shadow that won't fade. The police tracked his prints to a river, found a torn jacket, but nothing else. Sarah thinks he's gone, maybe drowned, maybe fled to another state. His rap sheet painted a picture of a drifter, petty theft, bar fights, a life on the edges, but no history of violence until he helped Amos. I see his face in crowds sometimes, bearded and cold-eyed, and my heart races until I realize it's just a stranger. I keep a knife by my bed, sharper than the rusted one I found in the tower, and I've taken self-defense classes, learning to strike fast and hard. I tell myself Ray's not coming back, but the forest taught me trust is a luxury I can't afford. The Creek Bend cabin was another dead end, or so the police say. They searched it after I gave them the map, found red clay matching Amos's boots, photos of Ellie on the walls, but no sign of Ray or another captive. I went there once, with Sarah, needing to see it. The cabin was small, its boards weathered, its windows boarded tight. Inside, the air was thick with dust, the floor creaking under my boots. I saw Ellie's face in those photos, smiling in a way Amos never did, and I felt a pang of pity for him, for the grief that broke him. But pity doesn't erase what he did. I left quickly, the forest silence too heavy, the pines too close.